Hello, back again, Dr. Priya Hassan, and we continue with our talk about the solar system. So, if you remember in the previous talk, we spoke about how we discovered the solar system for ourselves and then the typical properties which we had of the solar system. So, we know that our solar system is on a disk, it's a flat kind of a thing, with the exceptions, we'll keep it in mind. But you have a flat disk, okay, which is about 4.6 billion years, in which all the planets rotate and revolve approximately in the same direction. And there is also a clear difference in the chemical composition of the inner planets, which are rocky and more solid, and the outer planets, which are more gaseous and less dense, right? So we'll use these very properties of the solar system to talk about the origin of the solar system, because the origin is what we are always very interested in, right? So what are the two possible theories which we have of the solar system? This first one is what is called the catastrophic hypothesis. For example, that you had the sun, right? And you had a passing star hypothesis where a passing by star passed by the sun. The sun tore material out from which it actually formed the planets. It kind of captured this material which formed the planets. And this is called the catastrophic hypothesis. But the only problem in this is that a catastrophe does not happen too often. Thank God for that. And that is why, in that case, only a few stars would have planets. And such an event is just a chance event, which would happen very rarely. We'll talk about this later on, that we do have reason to believe that stars often have planets. And hence, it's not such a rare event to actually have planets. And therefore, we come to the more stronger theory, which is our theory of the evolutionary hypothesis, where we actually think of the solar system as formed during the evolution of the sun itself, right? So the birth of the sun is kind of linked to the formation of the solar system. Now, this was proposed a long time back by Laplace, which was called the Laplace nebula hypothesis, where he actually thought that rings of materials could separate from the spinning cloud, which forms stars, and you could actually have planets forming. And the evolutionary hypothesis actually predicts that most stars should have planets. And we'll also talk about it, why we do think that most stars do have planets. And hence, it's the evolutionary hypothesis which is more acceptable in today's times compared to the catastrophic hypothesis. So what's the nebula theory of solar system formation? Let's say we have an interstellar cloud or a nebula, or the protoplanet. And this interstellar cloud, okay, gravitational collapse can cause it to collapse, which is called the Jeans criterion. That means you could have only a specific case in which you could have such a collapse. We'll talk about this more tomorrow when we talk about stars. And the collapse actually causes the formation of what is called a protosun, or the star, and a protoplanetary disk around the star, right? Now the protostun, it actually starts heating up. It continues contracting, heating up, when finally nuclear fusion takes place and you have the formation of the sun. Parallelly along with that, you have the protoplanetary disk, where you have condensation taking place. And basically you will have a condensation of gas to solid, where part of it would actually condense to form metals or rocks, and part of it would actually form gases or ice. And the metal rocks would accrete, and that's what forms the terrestrial planets. So you have the nebula, which is, there's a variation in density from center to outside, and hence the central part, the center part of this thing is made up of more dense material, which is metals, and these metals will accrete and form the terrestrial planets. And the leftover material will actually form the asteroids, the meteors, etc. And the gases which we had, which were forming the outer part, they basically form what are called the Jovian planets, which are less density, and they are the outer part of the protoplanetary disk. So hence you can see that the nebula theory of solar system formation quite well explains the properties we have of the solar system. That is, you have the star, the sun and the planets forming at the same time, because they are formed from the same material, as well as you also have a gradation in the density of the nebula, due to which the inner planets are basically more rocky and the outer planets are the ones which are icy because of the density change in the protoplanetary nebula. The leftover materials form the nebula part, that is the gaseous icy part, is what then gives us our comets, right? While for the terrestrial planets, the leftover material actually form the asteroids, which is the region between between Mars and Jupiter, the asteroid belt, right? Now, the solar nebula hypothesis, we'll just revisit it. You have a rotating cloud of gas. Like I mentioned, when it satisfies Jeans criterion, you actually have it contracting, and the central part contracts to form the star, and you have the outer part, which will actually have the disk, in which you actually have planets forming. This was proposed, like I said earlier, by Immanuel Kant and Laplace a long time back. And as per this thing, the planets form at the same time as a star, so they have the same age. And we also see already planet formation sites, which we'll talk about now, in what are called T Tauri stars. And this explains how the sun and the solar system formed about 5 billion years ago, right? So you have planets formed within the disk of gas and fine dust materials. And as the cloud collapses, the star forms and the protoplanetary disk also forms around it. So if we actually look at what is our present understanding of star formation, you have giant molecular clouds. These are clouds which are very cold. They have a temperature of only about 10 to 20 Kelvin, but they have a density, and they're basically made up of hydrogen, molecular hydrogen, and a certain amount of helium. And these are very well observable regions. So this is what are called the pillars of creation in the Eagle Nebula, M16. And these are images of the HST, the Hubble Space Telescope, and where you can actually see very young stars forming. Now, typically in these young star-forming clouds, if the nebula contains enough of mass, right, then it begins to collapse because of its own weight, because of gravity. But the other force which is there is that there's a pressure in the gas, right? So what about the pressure in the gas? If it's a low mass cloud, then the gas pressure is very large compared to the gravity, and therefore you will have the cloud expanding typically, right? But if you have a high mass cloud, then in that case, gravity dominates and compared to the pressure, due to which the cloud basically contracts and collapses, right? And gravity wins and the cloud contracts. So you have a picture over here, that here you have the cloud collapsing, and you typically have the disk where planet formation takes place. It's another very popular image which you can find very easily of star formation, a dark cloud where you have dense cores, and the dense cores have gravitational collapse, a protostar forms, you have a disk, there's a bipolar flow, and these are what are called the T Tauri stars, which are variable stars, where these are very young stars, and they have the disk, and such stars would later on evolve to what are called pre-main sequence stars. Tomorrow we'll talk about what is the main sequence. And you can see that there's disk forms over here, and hence you can have the planetary systems formation. So this is the theoretical model we have of the formation of stars, which have planets forming along with it, right? So now what observational evidence do we have of it? This is the Orion Nebula. If you know how to identify the Orion constellation, below the belt, you have the Orion Nebula. And these are images again of Hubble Space Telescope, where you can see very young stars, where you can actually, the disks around young stars were actually imaged by HST, by Hubble Space Telescope a long time back, where we actually had observational evidence to tell us that yes, young stars do have protoplanetary disks around them. You can see more images over here in Orion Nebula of these disks at different kinds of alignments, depending upon what is the inclination angle it has with respect to us. And you can see them at various listings. And basically what they found is that many young stars in Orion Nebula are surrounded by these gaseous disks, okay? So you have ongoing planet formation taking place. These are all Hubble Space Telescope images, right? And these are probable sites of planet formation. There are various other images also which you can see. These are infrared images, where you can again see disks around T Tauri stars. And so you can already, now we've reached a stage where we can actually image the disks around young stars to actually support our nebula hypothesis. So Beta Pictoris is also a star. You have a star over here, Beta Pictoris, which actually has a planet going around it. And here you can actually see an image of the dust disk around the star. This was taken by ESO's VLT, which is a very large telescope, which has a diameter of 8.2 meters. And you can see that here now we already have direct imaging of the disk and young stars with planets actually around it, right? The VLA also, here we have another image, and here what I've shown you is an ALMA image. ALMA is another telescope which is there, which is observing the submillimeter, where this is a star called the HL Tauri, and you can actually see the left VLA image, and you can see the ALMA image where you can actually see, this is ALMA, this is VLA, where you can actually see the clumps which are forming young stars. ALMA has given us various other images. This is another young star which is called TW Hydrae, and here you can again see, if you zoom up to the central region, you can actually see clumps being formed and clear star formation, planet formations forming. And now with ALMA, we have a whole bunch, this is a whole variety of young stars where we actually have protoplanetary disks. And you can clearly see that in these stars, you can actually have regions, right? Where are the regions where planet formation is taking place. You can see there are clear gaps in the disk which are formed. And within those gaps, you can actually have clumps where planets are actually forming. So you can see here, you have a clear planet forming over here. And look at the scales. These are the scales of about astronomical units, and AU is an astronomical unit. So this is a scale of about 10 AU. And you can see a whole variety of stars, young stars, for which you can actually see their disks with planets forming, right? So what we now come to the conclusion is that planetary formation is basically a byproduct of star formation. So when stars are formed, planets are formed just along with it, due to which we actually expect a large number of stars to actually have planets. And therefore it's moved over here. But basically this tells us that planets are common and stars actually have a lot of planets. So if we have the solar nebula over here, where you have the young star, protostar forming in the center, you can actually have a variation in temperature and a variation in the composition of the protoplanetary disk, and with the temperature variation. And basically it's because of the temperature variation, we can see over here, that you will have a different amount of material also collecting around over here. So if we can actually see the condensation, you actually see that as you're moving outwards, you will have a fall in the temperature, which is shown over here. And therefore you will have a different amount of condensation. So therefore the center condensations are more metals and rocky materials, which are the terrestrial planets. And as you come outside and the temperature falls, you will have a certain point where you actually have what is called the frost line, where ice forms, and then beyond it you'll have gaseous materials condensing. So for example, this is the position of Jupiter, and you'll have more gaseous material around these regions. So this basically very well explains why do we have a difference in the chemical composition of inner or terrestrial planets compared to the outer planets or the Jovian planets. So accretion takes place. So the inner planets are basically formed by accretion, and by the pieces of planets actually sticking together. And that's your inner solar system, where you have rocky materials. And the outer ones, that is the Jovian planets, it's basically what is called nebular capture, where you have a growth of the icy planetesimals. And in this case, you'll see numerous moons are formed. And the Jovian planets also have a lot of moons themselves. And the solar wind is basically a flow of charged particles, which is ejected by the sun in all directions. It was stronger when the sun was young. And therefore the wind basically, it cleared out all this remaining gas and interrupted the cooling, right? So the leftover planetesimals were left, and they were tugged by the strong gravity of Jovian planets. Rocky leftovers became, and hence you have the collapse of the solar nebula taking place, where you have a flattening, and there's an animation that can actually show it. So you have the disk, it flattens, and then you have the formation of the solar system. So this is the typical picture we do have of the formation of the solar system, the heating of the protosun, and then the flattening of the disk. And the spinning of the disk also explains the angular momentum and the formation of the solar system. So I will end this presentation with how the nebula hypothesis is the most acceptable and for the solar system. And now it's even more because we actually have observational evidence where we are actually observing young stars with their protoplanetary disks and with planets forming around them. So I'll wind up with this and thank you.